Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot, and welcome to our no contact reading. So it's about time we do one of those. I've been getting some interesting questions, in particular, people wanting to know how your person is going to handle it if you reach out or make an effort to connect with them. So remember, in the last reading, we talked about whether you should reach out to them. And the answer was kind of like, whatever you decide to do, just remember that the impact, or that it will impact you. Think about how it's going to impact you. Tomorrow is going to come, I think, was kind of one of the messages that came through there. So we're going to take another look and get into it, see what's happening with this person with whom you are in no contact. As always, it'll be a general reading for this collective. So if it resonates with you, you may want to check out some of the other ones from this series, or you may even want to get in and check out some of the other ones in some of the other series, or that are just kind of out there, because some are for everyone in the collective, because they're all very much connected. Let's see, I have the Tarot of the Dragons for you, the Dark Wood Tarot, and then the Enchanted Map Oracle, and that's where we're going to start. So starting out with this Enchanted Map Oracle, we've got the card of Rock Bottom. And honestly, the way that this card, with this deck, it does do reversals, and sometimes I feel reversals in this deck and sometimes I don't. So in this case, I do, but it's interesting because this card in the reverse, the Rock Bottom card, has to do with like doing something repeatedly and the results are very consistent. The results are very consistent, but not necessarily what you're shooting for. And it's about continuing to do the same behavior. So watch for a place where you may be executing the same behavior repeatedly, and it's not giving you the results that you're looking for, but you may be continuing to do that. Maybe it's because you're not thinking about it, or because you're like, but I really want this to work, or whatever that ends up being. Just watch for it, because it may be something that you want to make an adjustment for. So, and that's the cool thing about these readings. Tarot doesn't tell you what's about to happen. It tells you which way the energy flows, so that way you're able to make adjustments if you don't like the way that something is going. Let's go ahead and take a look at the energy around your person. We're going to look separately at what it is that's keeping them so quiet, why they're still so quiet. We've got a Queen of Pentacles and a Six of Wands, though, to start with. So in their energy right now, energy around them, energy that they're putting out there, energy that they are manifesting in, we have a steady Queen of Pentacles, and a steady Queen of Pentacles that almost feels like it can't, it would be easily distracted, and they don't want the distraction. They want success. They're on a path to what they feel like is success, and they don't want anything to get in the way for them. This feels a little bit like an exaggerated form of, in some of the readings in the past, we've gotten this feeling that they didn't want to break a streak, or they wanted to be able to be in control of the way the communication comes across, but not wanting to break a streak is kind of really strong in this energy. It feels like they are wanting to do something that takes a lot of energy, and they're afraid that their energy is going to kind of get drained out if they allow for an attempt to make too much of a connection with you. However, that's also what's fueling them. So that's kind of it's an interesting combination. That's what's fueling them. That's what's driving them. And also there's a lot of actual real world 3D energy here with the Pentacles, with the Ten of Pentacles in particular. It feels like the lifestyle, feels like the world that they live in on the day-to-day basis. They are very focused on doing something successfully in that situation. But it's interesting because there's such a strong sense of them relying upon your energy in order to even maintain this. So it's got your energy in it, but it's like using what they are gaining from you as leverage to keep their silent streak going. We've got a Ten of Swords here in the reverse. Ten of Swords in the reverse is about trying to avoid pain, but in this case, it's not about finding distraction like usual. So usually for them, it's about finding distraction or running away, and that's how they address their pain. They just don't deal with it. They run away from it. In this case, it feels different. It's not quite distraction, but it does feel like focusing elsewhere, or maybe just outright denial. So there is a little bit of a sense of some kind of addiction here, something they can't quite shake. We know that they've got a sense of not being able to shake things, not being able to completely heal. That comes out here with the Four of Swords in the reverse as well. Inability to rest, even. Inability to heal, inability to rest, inability to get to that next step. So if your body does all of its healing and a lot of your mind healing happens while you're sleeping, it may be a matter of having a hard time sleeping, or not so much having a hard time sleeping, but not giving themselves that opportunity to sleep, not really putting themselves in a position to do that. But this devil energy of the addiction, and it's addictive energy, it's not necessarily an addiction. So it doesn't have to be a substance or, something specific like that, but it could be a behavior or something that they can't seem to make themselves stop doing, gambling or something to that effect. So it doesn't have to specifically be a drug or alcohol or, something that is a substance. Ace of Swords here in the reverse. You've got an Ace of Swords in the reverse and the King of Cups. And the King of Cups is the thing that feels like it gives me some hope, as well as the Six of Cups. But the Six of Cups is also what's going to undercut them a little bit. So there's a lot of harkening back to a specific time that the two of you spent together. So it could be a day, it could be that moment that you had the soul recognition in the first place, but there's definitely this sense of harkening back to a day that was, and it is something that really kind of is part of, it's like a cornerstone for their stability. There's something there that they can kind of look back and say, but there's always this, but there's always this. This King of Cups talks about, this is the part that I think is generally going to be, it means that they will conduct themselves in an honest way when they come across you. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get super deep into how they feel about things, or they're going to get super um, just revealing or vulnerable, but it does look like respect. It does look like charisma. It does look like integrity. It does look like wanting to do the right things, but it also looks like keeping a little bit of an arm's length distance. With the Ace of Swords, and I saved this one for last because it's about honesty, honesty within the self. There is a sense here that it's very connected to this Four of Swords feeling, this Ace of Swords not being able to be honest with themselves, not being able to get down to it. There's always something that keeps them from getting down to what is really going to be that kind of the difficult things. They are able to keep themselves in a more of a superficial way of thinking for the most part. And that is something that works well for them, or that they feel like works well for them, or not necessarily just thinking about superficial things, but thinking about specific superficial things. So they're able to, again, not so much distraction, but just redirect their thinking when they start to get to a place where they feel less comfortable. And so that's something that we see with them. They're kind of trying to keep things on a straight and narrow, but it has to do with a lot of distraction, creating buffer zones, things like that. So it's not so much them resolving their issues as avoiding them, and that's what we see in their energy right now. So I'm wondering, let's see what it is that's kind of keeping them so quiet. That was one of the questions that I wanted to get at in this reading, and sometimes I don't know what order they're going to come in here. So we're going to look at why are they still so quiet, and we're also going to look at how they're going to handle it if you are not. So that is a question I've gotten a lot. I know not everybody wants to reach out to their person. Not everybody wants to break that silence. But for those of you who do, that's one of the things that we're going to look at here. Again, remember, we looked at whether You should reach out to them last time. And one of the things that we saw was that it didn't matter so much whether you did or not, but remember that you will still feel the downstream impact of that. Tomorrow is still going to come. So, how is this going to impact you? If you reach out to them, how's that going to impact you? That was the important thing to look at. So, now we're going to look at how they will handle it if you reach out or make an effort to connect. So I want to look at that as our third question. First, though, I want to take a look at why they are still quiet. So we definitely saw that sense of wanting to maintain that quiet streak. But let's see what else. Okay, we've got the Strength card in the reverse. Fear's winning out. They're just afraid of how you're going to take things. Seven of Pentacles in the upright. They're working on something. They're working on something, but it's not done yet. So some of them have been, they felt inadequate. They didn't feel like they were going to be able to provide for you what they wanted to be able to provide, and that creates a lot of guilt for them. And so this is, I'm working on it. I'm getting to a place where I'm going to be able to do what I need to be able to do. So let me see what I dropped over here. Okay. We have a Six of Cups in the upright, thinking about the past with a strong nostalgia. That is part of what makes them want to reach out. It is also part of what keeps them quiet, that strong nostalgia, thinking about that day, thinking about that moment. Fears rising up to keep them quiet, but those same fears making them not so sure how you would respond if they did contact you. Would you be receptive? Would you be distant? How would they handle it? They also realize that tomorrow is going to come if they reach out. There are several of them that are starting to do that. I've gotten a couple of notes from people who say, well, he reached out, but they were both he's. And it was that he reached out, but it was brief, just kind of a what are you up to, and then disappeared again, And so they didn't expect much and they didn't receive much. But there was still, one thing I will say is that it still feels like the emotion on the divine feminine side is still erode. It's still turning into what it's going to turn into. So it's still very much in evolution. But these fears about how you're going to respond are very real. Seven of Pentacles, like I said, working on something that feels like they felt like it was a shortcoming before, and it was something that they were not going to necessarily know how to, they didn't know how to address this. They didn't have an easy answer. It wasn't just get a bigger job, or it wasn't just it's about money, or it's about where you live or the car you drive. It wasn't anything so simple. It was something a lot more investment in the self, and you're not ready for this. You will not survive this ride, kind of, So we've got a Three of Swords, Knight of Wands in the reverse, and let's see what we got over here. Knight of Cups in the reverse. Okay, so let's see how this works out. With the Three of Swords, this is a sadness that appears to be coming through that is not current. It's not current. It's not new. It's something that happened in the past. They dreamed about it, or something happened here where they feel bad. They feel bad. I feel like this is the thing that's causing the Ten of Swords in the reverse over here, that sense of avoidance. This is that. This is pain coming back out to say it's time for you to deal with this, and them saying, yeah, I'm not really wanting to deal with this right now. Strong desire to take control over the overall situation. So if they could just keep quiet for a little bit longer, they're aware that they would probably be able to outlast whatever this is. So we know this is a Mercury retrograde, and every time the Mercury retrograde comes around, this person wants to reach out, or you want to reach out. There's always kind of this desire to connect. And it's not necessarily such a bad thing. Okay, but you do have to realize the impact, the downstream impact, however that's gonna be for you, is something that you'll have to deal with. You add it to the lessons that you're already learning, or you just dust off something that you maybe hadn't been working on for a while. But this is a person who really wants to kind of control the outcomes, wants to control the narratives around the situation, wants to control the communication itself. Knight of Cups in the reverse says that they are trying to keep quiet because that means there are fewer fronts that they have to fight on. It just kind of keeps things simpler for them. This sort of keeps things simpler. They feel like they've already missed an opportunity, and at this point they'd be going for something that is maybe you taking pity on them, or it feels like they don't want to be placated. They don't want to be sitting there feeling like they're being tolerated, you know. There's a strong sense of that. With the Queen of Cups, there's a lot of triggering. This is reflecting again that fear of I'm not quite sure how you're going to respond to me when I arrive. So how does that work? You know, and there's a lot of fear around whether you are going to know about something, or if this is something that has been coming up like a nagging concern for them, that there's something that they're afraid that you're going to know about or find out about and they wouldn't be able to handle it. But by the same token, I feel like you already do. I feel like this is something that maybe showed up in this same dream. Like that's part of it, but it's also part of the lesson, and the thing that is bothering them are not the same thing, but they are inextricably intertwined. So we have a Two of Wands here, which feels a lot more like a Two of Swords. And especially because it's in the reverse and it's about them not crossing a crossroads, or, not making a decision. So rather than picking a direction, it's like they just sit down in the middle of the crossroads. Not the first time that we've seen that one, but probably the first time we've seen it in a little while. Here is somebody who the last time we looked at them, there was a lot of overwhelm happening because they had kind of this fast moving energy coming at them, and they really just wanted to take a break. They needed to take a break, take a step back. They were feeling triggered back then. Even in the last reading, they're still feeling triggered, like they didn't want to be seen. And so they've had other things happening in their life, which we've seen in some of the other readings, that have caused them to not exactly feel more resilient. That bit where they were trying to break out of the room, or they're trying to back out of the room without anybody noticing, and then the third party kind of turns around and is like, oh, I'm looking right at you, you know. I mean, I think that is part of what is driving some of this inability to make that next step or pick a direction. So you've got that Two of Wands, and they are just sitting down in the middle of the crossroads. They want control. There's a desire to have control over the situation. Remember last time they were afraid if they started it, they wouldn't know how to drive it or control it. They're very intimidated. With the Magician, okay, so we have a Magician and an Ace of Pentacles, and yeah, that's where we start. So the High Priestess feels like an honorable mention, but it's much more just around, it's easier to keep quiet, it's easier to keep my secrets to myself, and then I don't have to wonder what I've said or deal with it, you know. Ace of Pentacles just has them not wanting to start something new, and the Magician makes them feel like this is them not having control of the situation and saying, if I'm not going to have control over it, I'm really not going to participate. You know, they don't want to participate in something that they don't have control in over, and they just are no longer in a place where they could be talked into it. You know, that's kind of one of the things that I see here. This is a staunch decision to remain in a place, a staunch decision to maintain that streak and to let those fears win out. Like they're letting the fears win out. They're not fighting for it. That's one of the things that I'm feeling in this energy, because we know that there's a potential that they are going to reach out, and especially like it's almost like they're fighting it, even like as they're, whether they're conscious or not, there's just this sense of pushing it away and just fighting it almost mindlessly. And we know that some are reaching out, and then they're like, it's just like we said, they're almost like blurting something out and then saying, oh my gosh, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to hit send. They don't necessarily say that, but I mean, it's a sense of they reach out. It's a little bit out of control. And the only thing this person truly, truly, truly craves is that control. And they also crave the desire to not need that control, but that is secondary. If they could have control of the situation, then they're happy with that for the time being, even if it means they've got to maintain this silence. But we see they aren't completely happy with it, because there's still that feeling of addiction and trying to fill a hole or trying to fill a gap. So Curious to know if they are likely to reach out and kind of get into it a little bit more deeply with what's going on with them emotionally. But I think we're going to look at that when we get into the extended here in a minute, because first I want to look at how they're going to reach out or how they're going to handle it if you reach out and make an effort to connect, because that was one of the questions that I had received a couple of times during the course of this week. Yeah, so what happens then? Three of Wands in the reverse. They're not ready. They're not feeling ready. It's going to be evident that they don't feel ready. They feel awkward. They feel standoffish. You may notice some standoffishness. Five of Swords in the reverse. Not even willing to engage. This is the energy of a person who doesn't respond if you reach out to them, or possibly responds 3 days later. They're not inclined to engage. It doesn't seem like it catches. So if you reach out to this person, be prepared that they may not treat it like a priority. You've got the Tower in the reverse, fighting a change, and you reaching out does not encourage them toward that change. It will push them farther away from the change. So be aware of that. If you do reach out, don't make any assumptions or hold too much in like in your emotions about when they're going to respond, because this is a person who may remain quiet or may not respond within a reasonable amount of time. Let's see what I just dropped. Okay. Seven of Wands. This is it is a fight, but it feels a little bit more like a blind fight, or fighting against anything that's in front of them, but not necessarily the things that they actively are looking to get away from, not necessarily what they want to fight against. This is not a receptive sort of feeling. Knight of Swords, maybe a little bit of a rebuff, or they may be real terse. They may be just won't say very much. Resistant. This is resistance, but it also comes from a fear that is deep enough that causes, like, you can't even get through some of this fear. It's like this is once again the concept of locking yourself or staying locked out of something that you have the ability to get into, and you're the only one that truly has the key. No one else can let you in. No one can really guide you in. You just kind of have to do it, and they are not in a place to do it. So right now, again, reaching out to them looks like it may push them farther away into a place of greater seclusion. Or if they were thinking about unfolding a little bit and sending something out, this may cause them to be less likely to do that. Five of Wands is that effort, or it's a lack of effort. It's just really not putting it out there, not putting the effort, not creating the challenge. It's no traction. Yeah, so if you reach out to this person, realize that you may not hear much. They're likely to read it, but they're not going to say much. Let's see what I got. And they may respond, and they may be totally respectful. I do get the sense that over here, if they respond, they will be respectful, but I think they may remain a little distant. Let's see. I dropped another one, but we also have Page of Swords. Yeah, they're likely to do, the Page of Swords is communication, but this one feels a little standoffish. There's still that sense of standoffishness, and there's a sense of shooting themselves in the foot, or making a mistake making a mistake with the way that they respond back to you. So maybe not disrespectful, but too standoffish. And let me see what I just dropped here. Okay, we have the Lover's card. It's acknowledgement of this moment that they've got kind of running through their mind. So they have this moment running through their mind, but they don't exactly, there's not a connection between where they are and how to get to it. And it's in the past, so it makes sense. But it's like there's a desire to reclaim, or almost like an obsession around this moment, or wanting to reclaim the way that it felt. but not feeling like they know how to do that and feeling like it's a lot safer to keep that distance. And this is a sense of them being very avoidant and wanting to keep that distance at this time. I don't know that they're going to be able to, though, because they've also got like this push, but it feels like it's a very sudden. It feels like if they reach out, it's likely to be very sudden. Let's get into the extended and look to see if they are likely to reach out, what's happening with them emotionally. So that is what we're going to do. I'll just go ahead and pull these cards up, and I'll shuffle, and we will jump right into the extended. So I will cut tape here in a moment, and then we will come back and take a look at whether they're going to reach out and what is happening with them emotionally. So that will be what we do when we get into this extended. That'll be the link that is right down below here. So you will be able to see all of the links to interact and all of the links to get to the different extended readings down there. But the very top one will be the extended for this reading. So I will see you there, and see you there in a couple minutes. Otherwise, have a wonderful day, and I will catch you in the next reading.